Hi there, I'm Mistel Godlewski, an American girl who called the cornfields of Illinois home until over 10 years ago when I started navigating the chaos of life overseas. If you've ever felt that itch for something more, that whisper telling you to break free from the ordinary, you're in the right place. This podcast is your backstage pass to the wild ride of moving abroad. I'm here to pull back the curtain on the real journey, sharing stories that are funny, dramatic, and sometimes downright unbelievable. We'll explore the gritty details, from battling culture shock and navigating tricky visa processes to celebrating those small victories that make it all worth it. So whether you're daydreaming about a new life abroad or already in the thick of it, grab your passport and let's explore what it really means to live life beyond borders. Welcome to A Broadly Speaking. Hey there, friend. Welcome back to the A Broadly Speaking podcast. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. My name is Mistel, and I've been living abroad for more than a decade. I've experienced the excitement, the overwhelm, the cultural missteps, and the moments that made me stop and ask myself, am I really doing this right? Today's episode might be a little bit uncomfortable. It's about a truth that most people ignore because it feels, well, harsh. But it's worth saying, and here it is. Moving abroad doesn't automatically make you enlightened, progressive, or morally superior. In fact, you likely are moving abroad with the best of intentions, a modest budget, and a we're not doing this for adventure attitude, and you may still act entitled. You can be broke, liberal, anti-capitalist, even feminist, and still hurt the people around you without even realizing it. Why? Well, because your privilege follows you wherever you go, and that privilege doesn't necessarily mean money. And when you move abroad, it magnifies it so much. I know this because I've lived it. When I first moved abroad, I didn't have a trust fund or some magical network of connections. I had a little bit of savings, stubbornness, and a partner willing to jump into the unknown with me. But even with all of that, there were privileges baked into our experience that I barely noticed at first. Privilege is subtle. It's invisible until you run smack into the consequences of not having it or realizing that others don't. And when you're in another country, it doesn't disappear. In fact, it becomes more obvious, more tangible, more unavoidable. Let's start with the kinds of privilege most of us don't see. A strong passport is one of the most obvious yet overlooked privileges. It's not about conveniences. It opens doors that are closed to millions of people worldwide. Some passports allow you to cross borders, apply for visas, or even leave a country safely. Others, not so much. People from certain countries face nearly insurmountable barriers even when traveling, let alone trying to move abroad. Then there's financial flexibility. Even a modest cushion like $2,000 changes everything. It means if rent spikes, bureaucracy slows things down, or emergencies happen, you can absorb it, even a little. Local residents may not have that option. They can't just pick up and move to another neighborhood or another country if life gets complicated. And then there's the ultimate privilege, the ability to leave in the first place. If a country becomes politically unstable, unsafe, or economically challenging, you can pack up your bags and go. Most locals, well, they can't. Their families, their communities, and their futures are tied to that particular place. You're living in a country as someone with exit options that many cannot even dream of. And here's where things get sticky. Moving abroad with privilege doesn't automatically make you bad. Most of us aren't trying to hurt anyone. We move for safety or opportunity, better schools, or simply just a better life. Good intentions, though, it doesn't erase the impact. I call this the colonizer trap. It's when we act in ways that assume the world should bend to us. It looks like renting a flat locals can't afford, driving up neighborhood prices to where simply it's impossible for locals to afford it. It looks like treating communities as backdrops for Instagram instead of as neighborhoods and humans and people. It looks like expecting services, housing, and culture to adapt to your way of life because it feels right to you. Intentions aside, impact exists. Ignoring it doesn't make it disappear. When I first realized this, I thought acknowledging my privilege would feel like shame. I was bracing for guilt, but I didn't have to. Recognition is about responsibility. It's about asking yourself those hard questions. Am I taking up space locals need? Am I amplifying their voice or just my own experience? Am I contributing meaningfully or just extracting comfort for myself? These are messy, uncomfortable questions. But if you're serious about living abroad responsibly, you need to wrestle with them. The truth is, here in Switzerland, they sort of make it impossible for me to take up space that the locals need. You cannot rent flats that are too far below your salary budget. You're expected to pay approximately 30% of your salary per month towards your rent. And if your salary is $2,000, that 30% is a lot lower than if your salary is $10,000 a month. So, one of the things that they do is, for us specifically, we were making a salary that put it where we had a minimum rental payment that we needed to be at a month. We were not allowed to rent an apartment that was less than, say, 2,000 francs a month. Why? Because we could afford more than that. And they don't want us to take away from the locals. They don't want us to extract what the locals or people who are making less than we do need, right? So we had to pay that much money. We had to have a minimum rental amount that we were paying. And yes, it's uncomfortable. And yes, of course, I would rather pay $2,000 a month versus $5,000 a month or whatever it is, right? I don't remember what our rent is. I'm making up numbers here. But you need to be able to understand that just because I can afford less, or I'm sorry, just because I can afford more doesn't mean I need to settle for less because I need to leave those apartments for people who can't afford the higher rent, right? So that's where we balance those two things. And in Switzerland, of course, there's fixed rent prices and things like that. And it's not to the point where we're living in a gentrified neighborhood or we're living in an expat only neighborhood. Excuse me. But we do need to make that clear. The truth is, I've made my share of mistakes. I assumed I could navigate systems easily because I had a Western passport. I ignored local holidays and traditions because they weren't a big deal to me. I paid more for housing in some cases than the locals could afford simply because I could. And even though I didn't intend to harm, it could be considered extractive. Owning these mistakes doesn't make you a bad person, but it does mean you need to confront how your privilege shapes every decision, from the way you communicate to where you live and how you spend your money. So, what you do with awareness. You act consciously. Learn the language. Even a little effort shows respect. Don't rely on smug English or silence. It's a form of extraction to expect everyone else to accommodate you. Listen more than you speak. Observe, ask questions, and learn before making assumptions about the culture, the people, or the systems that you're stepping into. Support local businesses and initiatives. Your spending power has weight, and the choices you make can either strengthen a community or exploit it. Reflect on your financial footprint. Are you driving up rent, pricing out locals, or using resources that others can't access? Awareness is the first step towards change. Check your motivations. Are you running away from something or are you building something meaningful? Are you moving for self growth or is it a vacation described as a life decision? Knowing what you're moving towards matters more than any checklist of what to pack or how to move abroad. Here's the thing. Privilege doesn't disqualify you from moving abroad. It can absolutely guide you. Used thoughtfully, your advantages can amplify local voices, support grassroots organizations, and advocate for fairness in ways locals might not have the bandwidth for. When I moved abroad, I realized that my privilege could be a tool for good or a weapon for extraction. The choice was mine. I could show up obliviously or I could act intentionally. I could choose the latter, and it made all the difference in the world on how I built my life abroad. Privilege becomes clear in moments that are easy to overlook. When bureaucracy slows you down, but you have resources to navigate it, that's privilege. When healthcare costs are high, but you can afford to have private insurance, for example, that may be privilege. When you can leave a city or a country entirely, that's privilege. The difference between you and the locals isn't about luck, it's about systemic advantages baked into your life before you even left home. Living abroad magnifies everything about you, your strengths, your weaknesses, your fears, and yes, your privileges. And while you can't escape them, you can respond to them responsibly. Awareness gives you the power to act differently. It allows you to create a life that's ethical, intentional, and meaningful. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to acknowledge the impact of your presence and make a conscious choice. Let me be clear. This is absolutely not about guilt. It's about responsibility. It's about recognizing that when you move abroad, you're not just relocating yourself, you're stepping into a web of systems and communities and people whose lives intersect with yours in ways you may never fully see. And how you navigate that web absolutely matters. Awareness also opened doors. Once you acknowledge privilege, you can use it to create opportunities that weren't there before. You can support local initiatives, amplify voices that aren't heard, and advocate for fairness in tangible ways. Privilege becomes a tool when wielded thoughtfully. The bottom line is this: moving abroad will magnify literally everything in your life. It magnifies your curiosity, your courage, your privilege, your impact. Pretending it doesn't exist is naive. Acting like you're exempt from consequences because you're woke or anti colonial or whatever else you want to call it is dangerous. But embracing that awareness, that's powerful. That's transformative. That's how you move abroad and actually do it right. All right, my friends, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for spending time with me. If you've ever questioned how your choices abroad may affect others, or if you felt uneasy about your privilege, or if you want to live abroad ethically, this episode is for you. If you want practical help planning your move, like visa, logistics, mindset, and ethical considerations, I invite you to take a look at the abroad courses that I have. I have several different mini courses that are available to you. I'll link them in the show notes. All of them will help you really think through your process of moving abroad and talk about the ethics of it as well. All right, my friends, this one is it for Broadly Speaking. We tackle the hard truths and leave illusions behind, and we build lives abroad that are intentional, meaningful, and responsible. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks for tuning in to Broadly Speaking. If today's episode got you dreaming a little bigger or thinking a little braver, go ahead and hit subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who's ready for their own adventure. And hey, don't be a stranger. Come hang out with me over on Instagram at @IamEstelle for the real, unfiltered life abroad. Keep that passport handy, and remember, life's too short to stay in one place.